Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe right now to join us on this journey of Africa's untold truths. Smile, because every day we uncover powerful stories the world tries to hide, and you don't want to miss the next one. Fire. What if I told you that beneath the burning sands of Africa, hidden away from the eyes of the world, a young revolutionary leader has buried millions of gallons of salt water? It sounds impossible, even crazy, but the results are nothing short of unreal. This is not science fiction. This is the vision of Ibrahim Traoré, the man defying global powers, rewriting Africa's destiny, and now taking on one of humanity's oldest enemies, desertification. Africa's greatest wealth is not gold, not diamonds, not oil. It is water. But for decades, this most precious resource has been disappearing. Every year, the Sahara Desert expands southward by almost 10 kilometers. Croplands vanish, rivers dry up, and entire villages are swallowed by sandstorms. Salt water, though abundant in the Atlantic and Mediterranean, has always been seen as useless for agriculture. It kills plants, poisons soil, and destroys crops. But what if salt water could be hidden, buried deep under the sand, and transformed into life itself? Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old soldier president of Burkina Faso, is not just fighting political battles. He is waging war against the very forces of nature that have chained Africa for centuries. While the world expected him to focus only on weapons and wars, Traoré shocked everyone with a radical environmental project. His idea was simple, yet revolutionary. Pump millions of gallons of salt water from underground aquifers and coastal reserves. Bury it under thick layers of desert sand. Use solar-powered condensers to extract pure fresh water from this hidden reserve. At first glance, it sounds impossible, but science says otherwise. Here's how it works. Beneath the Sahara, there are massive underground aquifers filled with brackish or salty water. Instead of letting this water evaporate and poison the soil, Traoré's engineers buried it under insulated sand chambers. Above these chambers, they built solar stills, giant glass domes powered by the relentless African sun. The heat evaporates the salt water, leaving salt behind. The vapor rises, condenses, and returns as crystal-clear drinking water. This means millions of gallons of otherwise useless water turned into fresh water for crops, villages, and livestock. Across Burkina Faso, people began to believe again. Women who once walked 10 miles for a bucket of dirty water now filled their pots with clean, fresh water from desert wells. Farmers who watched their land turn into dust now saw green sprouts breaking through sand. Children who went to bed hungry now tasted the sweetness of food grown from once dead soil. The spirit of Africa was rising, one drop of water at a time. Traoré's vision echoed far beyond Burkina Faso. From Niger to Mali, from Chad to Senegal, leaders began to ask, if he can do it, why not us? But with every miracle comes resistance. Western corporations, long profiting from Africa's poverty, saw danger. If Africa learned to turn deserts green, if it could grow its own food, if it could harness its own water, it would no longer need foreign aid, loans, or exploitation. Media outlets mocked Traoré's project, calling it a fantasy, pseudoscience, even madness. But while they laughed, the desert began to bloom. Satellite images showed patches of green spreading in once dead zones. Villages reported higher crop yields. Migration slowed as people returned to farm their lands. What was once a dream was now a reality, undeniable, unstoppable. If this project expands, it could transform the entire Sahel. Imagine, deserts turning into fertile farmlands. Millions of Africans finding work in agriculture and clean energy. A continent once seen as poor, becoming the food basket of the world. Ibrahim Traoré may be young, but his ideas are ancient. Africa has always been a land of innovation, from the pyramids to Timbuktu's libraries. Now, the continent is rising again, and this time, its weapon is not war. It is water. They buried salt water under the sand and found life. It is more than an experiment. It is proof that Africa can write its own future. A future where deserts bloom. A future where hunger ends. A future where no child ever cries for a drop of clean water again. The world doubted him, but Ibrahim Traoré believed. And in his belief, he planted the seeds of a miracle. Because in Africa, even the desert can learn to live again. For centuries, Africa has lived under the shadow of the Sahara Desert. Each year, this desert swallows land the size of entire countries. Fields turn to dust, rivers vanish, cattle die, and millions of people are forced to migrate, leaving behind the homes of their ancestors. The cruelest part? There is water beneath the ground, but most of it is salt water. Water too toxic for crops, too bitter for drinking, too deadly for soil. The question haunted African farmers and scientists for decades. How can we turn useless salt water into the source of life? While the world expected him to focus only on politics and wars, Ibrahim Traoré stunned everyone with an environmental project no African leader had dared to try. His idea was bold. Pump millions of gallons of salt water from underground aquifers. Bury it deep beneath the desert sand. Use the African sun, one of the hottest forces on Earth, to transform that water into something new. To his critics, it sounded like madness, but to his people, it sounded like hope. The process was daring, but rooted in science. Step 1. Bury the salt water in special sand chambers, preventing it from poisoning the surface. Step 2. Build solar domes, giant glass structures powered by sunlight. Step 3. Let the brutal desert heat do its work. The salt water evaporates. The vapor rises, leaving salt crystals behind. And what falls back down is pure, drinkable fresh water. For the first time in history, the desert itself became a factory of life. And slowly, the spirit of Africa began to rise. Villages once abandoned came back to life. Farmers planted crops where only sand once ruled. Children who had never tasted clean water before splashed and laughed in crystal-clear streams. The miracle of Traoré's water project was more than just technology. It was the rebirth of belief. From Mali to Niger, from Chad to Senegal, whispers spread, if he can do it, why not us? For Africa, water is not just survival, it is freedom. By burying salt water beneath the sands, Traoré sent a message to the entire world. We will turn our curses into blessings. We will turn our deserts into gardens. To his people, it wasn't just science, it was a revolution of dignity. No longer would villages beg for aid convoys or foreign loans. They could now create their own water, their own food, their own future. Part 5. The Spirit of Africa. But as hope grew in Africa, fear grew in the West. For decades, foreign powers had profited from Africa's dependence, its hunger, its thirst, its debt. If Africa could grow its own food, If deserts could bloom into farms, the old chains of control would shatter. Western media laughed at Traore. They called his project madness, pseudoscience, a dictator's fantasy. But while they mocked, satellite images told another story. Barren zones slowly turning green. Villages producing more crops. Migration slowing down. The world could no longer deny it. The desert was changing. If expanded across the Sahel, Traoré's vision could feed millions, create jobs, and transform Africa into a powerhouse of food and clean energy. Imagine deserts blooming with crops. Imagine solar-powered farms exporting food to the world. Imagine a generation of Africans growing up not in poverty, but in abundance. Traoré may be young, but his ideas carry the spirit of Africa's ancestors, the builders of pyramids, the keepers of Timbuktu's knowledge, the visionaries of old kingdoms. Now Africa is ready to rise again, and this time its weapon is not war, it is water. They buried salt water under the sand, and from it they brought life. What was once called impossible has become Africa's greatest symbol of hope. Because in the hands of dreamers, even the desert can bloom. The world doubted him, but Ibrahim Traoré believed, and in that belief, he planted the seeds of a miracle. This is not just a story about water. It is a story about freedom, a story about Africa, and a story that is only just beginning.